Ma Xiaodao, wake up, sister. Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. Huo Yuhao took a deep breath. He already had his initial judgments from the strength that Ma Xiaodao had displayed before this. Her martial soul is an evil phoenix, and she's inherited that from Shrek Academy's first 7 monsters. Her martial soul seems to have completely mutated into a dark phoenix now. You can visualize that as ultimate fire that possesses the element of darkness. In terms of element, the two of us have to team up against her to even stand a chance at restraining her. However, she has 8 soul rings. If my senses are right, my sister's soul power has increased enough for her to have 8 soul rings, but she's not a soul doluo. Yi Gai drew a cold breath as she heard Huo Yuhao's words. She hadn't wasted her time at the Tang sect when she was there, and she now knew a lot more about soul masters. An 8-ringed soul doluo who possessed ultimate fire, what kind of concept was that? This existence was probably more terrifying than normal soul masters, who had just become titled doluo. Furthermore, she also wielded the element of darkness. Shusansha forced a laugh and said, if that weren't the case, how could she become the Holy Lady? In the previous Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy tournament, Xiaotao was Shrek's team leader, and her martial soul mutated, because she unleashed too much power during the tournament's final round. She was eventually kidnapped by the Holy Ghost Church. We are in trouble now, because she isn't just powerful. We can't kill her, so we have already lost this battle in psychological terms. Huo Yuhao shook his head softly and said, that may not be true. Sister Xiaodao doesn't seem to have lost her mind as completely as teacher Xiao Ya has. Her ultimate fire is just too brutal and violent. Even the evil soul masters might not be able to control her emotions entirely. I tested her before this, and she seemed to respond to my voice. If I can break her out of her trance, then our operation will have a much higher chance of success. No, that's too dangerous, Shusansha muttered. Huo Yuhao laughed bitterly and said, I have to try no matter how dangerous it is, because she's already here. Leave right now, the two of you. Her mental state is still a little confused. Don't worry, even if I can't defeat her, I know how to escape. Yes, Ma Xiaodao was here. Ma Xiaodao was standing on the street outside therein, still dressed in her long dark red dress, and just silently standing there. It was now late at night, and there wasn't a single soul on the street. She was waiting quietly, as if she were the sovereign queen of the dark night. She had locked onto Huo Yuhao way before this with her spiritual power. Huo Yuhao had felt a thread of Ma Xiaotao's spirit locking onto his avatar when he was escaping. Thoughts spun in his mind like lightning when that happened, and he made a decision. The Holy Ghost Church had stationed more forces in Sunrise City than he had predicted. If he couldn't break through via Ma Xiaodao, their operation would have a less than 50% chance of success. After all, they had to help several hundred people escape. He had some confidence to break the locks and restraints, but getting a sufficient distance away safely was too difficult. Huo Yuhao leapt through the window and landed on the street outside quietly. He stared at Ma Xiaodao opposite him, and his eyes gradually became excited and passionate. An image surfaced in his memory. He was back on the Sea God's Lake's shores, and Ma Xiaodao had nearly murdered them because she had lost her mind. He felt like he was back inside the icy lake water once more, when his soul power had interacted with Ma Xiaotao's soul power. Ma Xiaodao was his hot-tempered sister, but she had always been concerned about him, and she had always cared about him. He felt so much love and kinship from Ma Xiaodao, and even a little bit of gentle charm. Back inside the room, Yi Gai wanted to follow Huo Yuhao outside, but Shusansha grabbed her arm. Let's go. But she's an evil soul master who possesses ultimate fire. She's also a soul doluo, how can you how? Shusansha lowered his voice and said, trust him. We can't help him here, and we will only attract more enemies. Let's go. He dragged Yi Gai forcefully as he spoke, and they rose through the air and jumped through another window on the other side before they vanished into the night sky in the blink of an eye. Do I know you? Ma Xiaotao's voice sounded a little husky amidst her coldness, while her voice was a lot more pleasing to the ear than before. Of course. Huo Yuhao took a deep breath, as he forcefully suppressed his riling emotions at the same time. Who are you? A thread of struggle flickered beneath Ma Xiaotao's eyes. Her emotions were a little off and confused since she had sensed Huo Yuhao's outcry inside the water, and scene after blurry scene flashed by in her mind. She felt as if something very important was about to happen, or had already happened before. I'm Huo Yuhao, your younger brother. Huo Yuhao removed his makeup as he spoke and revealed his true face. Huo Yuhao. That name sounds familiar. Who is that? Ma Xiaotao's eyes became even more confused and perplexed. Huo Yuhao gradually stepped towards Ma Xiaotao. He was walking very slowly, but every step was very stable. He had been observing the dark red flames that were dancing in Ma Xiaotao's eyes this entire time. Sister, I am Yuhao. Do you still remember me? We first met on the shores of the Sea God's Lake, on Shrek Academy's Sea God's Lake. You lost control of yourself because of your evil fire back then, and you nearly killed Donga and I. My martial soul possesses ultimate ice, and I have suppressed the evil fire inside your body multiple times. You treated me as if you were my own sister, and you loved me and took care of me. We participated in the Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy tournament together, and we eventually clinched the championship and defended Shrek's honor. You were our team leader, and you were the one who led us to our ultimate glory. Huo Yuhao. Shrek. Ma Xiaodao seemed to have remembered some things. Suddenly, she took a step out and instantly appeared before Huo Yuhao, grabbing at Huo Yuhao's shoulder with one hand. Huo Yuhao didn't dodge, and he didn't use any of his abilities. He just let her grab him however she wanted, and a wave of searing heat poured into him from Ma Xiaotao's palm. Huo Yuhao could see dark red flames rising from her right hand, and the clothes on his shoulder were immediately burnt to a crisp, then into ash. What was more terrifying was that Huo Yuhao's skin was starting to burn, and half his body subsequently became dark red. Huo Yuhao's body reacted instinctively at this moment. Green light surged from his body, and the outline of his skeleton could be seen as green light continued to flicker. Intense chills subsequently burst forth, and collided with that wave of searing heat. Huo Yuhao and Ma Xiaotao's bodies glowed at the same time, one body flickered with green light glimmering with faint ice blue, while the other rippled with dark red light. The air around her was starting to twist and contort from all that heat. Ultimate ice and ultimate fire, two great extremities, and two formidable soul power types that were polar opposites of one another, fought against each other on Huo Yuhao's shoulder. Ma Xiaodao had a much stronger cultivation than Huo Yuhao, but for some reason, her ultimate fire couldn't continue deeper once it entered his body. The Ice Jade Empress Scorpion's skeleton amplified Huo Yuhao's elemental strength, and he had also assimilated part of the Snow Empress and the Ice Empress origin power, which had allowed him to raise his ultimate ice to another level. Huo Yuhao's elemental power still surpassed Ma Xiaotao's. No matter what, Ma Xiaotao's ultimate fire wasn't pure enough, because it also possessed the element of darkness. But Huo Yuhao still winced in pain and agony. This contest between the two extremities was still occurring in his body, and Ma Xiaodao just had to slap him with her palm if she wanted to kill him. Huo Yuhao could break free from her clutches, but he would have to pay a heavy price, and he didn't move, because he didn't want to abandon this opportunity. He was very clear that he only had a chance to move her when her emotions were still considered stable, and he wouldn't stand a chance at all when her emotions became confused and disorganized once more. Huo Yuhao's glossy eyes were filled with passion and emotion, and he resisted the intense pain in his shoulder with great difficulty, as he called out softly, "Sister, sister." Ma Xiaotao's hand that was holding him suddenly stiffened, when she felt his ultimate ice fighting back against her, and she just stared at Huo Yuhao from a close distance away. The light around them, with the two of them at its center, was twisted. The high-altitude surveillance soul tools in the sky couldn't see anything at all. The reason for that was because this entire region was within Huo Yuhao's spiritual interference and imitation. Two powerful million-year soul skills were being used together, and unless there were thermal detectors close to where they were, nothing could possibly detect them. Furthermore, even if there were thermal detectors nearby, this contest between ultimate ice and ultimate fire going on between them meant that it wouldn't take more than 3 seconds before those thermal detectors exploded. "Sister," Huo Yuhao was still calling out to her. "You are..." Yuhao, a tinge of consciousness finally appeared within the fires dancing in Ma Xiaotao's eyes. "Yes. It's me, Yuhao." Huo Yuhao called out softly. "No, you're my enemy." The dark red flames deep in Ma Xiaotao's eyes became stronger, and she applied strength once more with the hand that was still holding onto Huo Yuhao's shoulder. Huo Yuhao gritted his teeth, and he called out yet again with a hoarse voice. "Sister." Ma Xiaotao's hand loosened a little more. The skin on Huo Yuhao's shoulder had peeled off, revealing his tendons and the flesh beneath. Huo Yuhao's life gold bestowed immense life energy to him, but even his life gold couldn't help him repair his tissues amidst this standoff between ultimate ice and ultimate fire. Fresh blood was vaporized continuously as Huo Yuhao's life energy seeped away. Tears flickered in Huo Yuhao's gleaming eyes. "Sister, do you know how much I've missed you over the years? I have no family, and I've always treated you like my own sister. I've suffered so much pain and agony for so long after you disappeared without a trace. I've finally found you, sister. Don't ever leave me again, okay?" He took a step forward as he spoke as he reached out with his right hand for Ma Xiaotao's waist. Ma Xiaotao instantly raised her left hand and cut towards Huo Yuhao's neck. Right at that moment, Huo Yuhao's glistening eyes suddenly flared as he shouted at the top of his voice, "Sister!" Ma Xiaotao's left hand stopped half a foot away from Huo Yuhao's neck, just like that. Ultimate fire continued to burn, as the light of ultimate ice rippled continuously from Huo Yuhao's body. He took this chance, and his right hand finally wrapped itself around Ma Xiaotao's waist as he hugged her well-developed body tightly. Ma Xiaotao grunted softly as the hand that was tightly latched onto Huo Yuhao's shoulder relaxed a little more. Ma Xiaotao's ultimate fire and Huo Yuhao's ultimate collided once more, and both their bodies were jolted painfully, as if they were being electrocuted. Huo Yuhao couldn't raise his left arm anymore, as his shoulder was severely injured, and his tendons and blood vessels were damaged. But that wasn't important to him. What was important was that he had finally taken the most crucial step. "Sister, sister, wake up. Wake up. I am Huo Yuhao, and you are Ma Xiaodao. We are both students from Shrek Academy, and you are my sister, my sister. Sister, sister." He called out to Ma Xiaodao again and again, and he applied strength continuously through his arm that was wrapped around her waist. The Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion's patterns gradually glimmered into view on Huo Yuhao's back, as he began to strengthen his ultimate ice. Intense chills emerged from his body and transformed into countless thin threads that fought against Ma Xiaotao's ultimate fire. But amidst this contest of extremes, a grey soul ring glimmered beneath Huo Yuhao's feet, and discreetly absorbed the energies of darkness within Ma Xiaotao's ultimate fire. Huo Yuhao was no longer the weak and small soul master that had participated in the Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Soul Dueling Tournament with Ma Xiaodao back then. His soul power had reached rank 60, and he just needed another soul ring before he would become a soul emperor. He might possibly reach an even higher level. Huo Yuhao had completely absorbed the origin energy of ultimate ice that the Snow Empress had infused into his body a long time ago, and his soul power was so pure that even Shusansha, who was nearing rank 70, would gasp in amazement. How was Huo Yuhao able to defeat and kill that spiritual type evil soul master, an 8-ringed soul Doluo? Besides the power of his 3 ultimate skills, his personal cultivation formed an important foundation for this feat. The truth was that Huo Yuhao could almost obtain 2 soul rings instead of just 1. The foundations of his soul power were nearing rank 70, because of the gift that the Snow Empress had given him a long time ago, formidable soul power, which had brought him incredible pain and agony. This soul power had always been there, and as the hard times ended, the good times began. This also meant that Huo Yuhao had a chance to directly become a soul sage if he could find suitable soul rings, and was the same reason why he had the stamina to resist Ma Xiaodao. He was only rank 60, but his endurance and the strength of his soul power were close to rank 70, while his element wasn't any weaker than hers. Huo Yuhao would be considered a powerful individual in the world of soul masters today, or rather, a quasi-powerful individual. He already had the confidence to resist his sister face-to-face, while his strong control over his spiritual power was also part of his foundation and confidence. At this moment, he was using ultimate ice to support his spiritual power in an attempt to awaken Ma Xiaodao, and he was also weakening the energies of darkness inside her body. The most empirical difference between Ma Xiaodao and Tang Huaye was that the evil soul masters had directly controlled Tang Huaye's heart and mind. In addition to the drugs and whatnot that those evil soul masters had given her, Tang Huaye was almost completely lost and confused. In contrast, one of Ma Xiaotao's most substantial problems was presented by her martial soul, the evil phoenix. All sorts of hallucinogens or psychedelics were futile against someone who possessed ultimate fire like she did. Those evil soul masters were able to control her heart and mind, but they were only able to do so because they took advantage of her confusion and her emotional characteristics. Huo Yuhao continuously weakened the energies of darkness within her body so that her confused will and consciousness could gradually recover. Even if Ma Xiaodao couldn't awaken completely, she would at least be able to retrieve part of her memory. What Huo Yuhao had inherited from the Calamity Necromancer, Electrolux, allowed him to discreetly purify the evil aura's fundamental existence within Ma Xiaotao's body. If Huo Yuhao was as powerful back then as he was today, he wouldn't have been afraid of Ma Xiaotao going mad at all. You. Ma Xiaotao's right hand finally relaxed completely. Her right hand was still on his shoulder, but her confused and befuddled eyes gradually became clear and transparent, while those dancing flames in her eyes were slowly receding. Sister, Huo Yuhao continued to call out to her, and every single call came from deep within his heart. Every single exclamation was filled with his intimacy with Ma Xiaotao. You are Yuhao. Ma Xiaotao's voice didn't sound so hoarse, as the ultimate fire on her body ebbed. Huo Yuhao slowly withdrew his ultimate ice at the same time. Yes, I am your Huo Yuhao. I am your little brother. Wake up, sister, wake up. I am Ma Xiaotao. I'm not the holy lady. I'm not the holy lady. Ma Xiaotao's eyes were becoming increasingly clear, and Huo Yuhao continued to dispel the energies of darkness within her body as her eyes became brighter and brighter. The dark red flames that were emanating from her body slowly became fiery red. We have a chance. Huo Yuhao was elated as he enhanced his absorption of Ma Xiaotao's darkness. He patted Ma Xiaotao softly on her back again, and again, as he continued to guide her with his spiritual power. I am Ma Xiaotao. What am I doing here? Ma Xiaotao muttered as if she was in a daze. Huo Yuhao gently released her from his embrace. He raised his head and stared into her eyes. The dark red colors in Ma Xiaotao's eyes had abated. Even though her eyes couldn't be considered impeccably clear and transparent, she didn't have that coldness from before. Yuhao. You're Yuhao. How have you become so tall? Ma Xiaotao stared at him with a dazed look in her eyes. Huo Yuhao answered, that's because I've grown up. Sister, I am Yuhao. Ma Xiaotao suddenly saw his shoulder and asked, what happened to your shoulder? Who was the one that hurt you so much? I'll kill him. Her eyes instantly became sharp as she spoke. Calm down, sister, calm down. I did that to myself by accident, and I'm all right. You need to calm down. Huo Yuhao urgently tried to explain. He couldn't let Ma Xiaotao descend into her original state of confusion, because of any emotions that were rippling in her heart. What's happening to me, Yuhao? Why do I feel so muddlehead? I feel like I've been this way for a long time. I've finally seen you after so long. How have you been? Huo Yuhao said gently, I've been well, sister. Life has been tough on you these days. Ever since you lost control of your martial soul during the big competition, we took you back to the academy for treatment, but the hall master of the illustrious Virtue Hall, Jing Hongchen, entered the academy and destroyed your treatment room. The Holy Ghost Church, which consists entirely of evil soul masters, took that opportunity to kidnap you before they turned you into another person with their evil sorceries. Can you remember anything? Ma Xiaotao quivered when she heard the Holy Ghost Church, and seemed to regain her memory slowly. The Holy Ghost Church, I am the Holy Ghost Church's Holy Lady. No, why have I become the Holy Ghost Church's Holy Lady? No. I am Ma Xiaotao, I am Ma Xiaotao. Her eyes were starting to become confused and bewildered once more. Huo Yuhao lifted his right hand and pressed it against her forehead, as he channeled threads of cool soul power into her. Ma Xiaotao shivered from the cold, and her eyes became clear yet again. Where are we, Yuhao? I seem to have forgotten many things, but my brain seems to contain many things too. What do we do? What should I do? She displayed some weakness as she spoke, and she took a step forward and hugged Huo Yuhao again. Her delicate body was still trembling faintly. Huo Yuhao gently patted her back and said, it's all right, sister. What happened in the past has already happened, and as long as you recover, you'll still be Ma Xiaodao, and you'll still be my sister. Sister, you should try to clear your head, and you should try your best to think back. Ma Xiaodao seemed to gain quite some comfort in Huo Yuhao's embrace, and her emotions finally slowly settled down. I think I can remember. I can remember some things. Have I done many bad things, Yuhao? Ma Xiaotao's voice sounded a little grief-stricken. No, sister, you have never done anything bad or wrong. The Holy Ghost Church's Holy Lady is the one who has done those things, and not you. Furthermore, I have never seen you harm anyone. You need to relax, we are in grave danger at the moment, and you have to calm down as quickly as possible. All right. The necromantic halo beneath Huo Yuhao's feet had absorbed much of the darkness within Ma Xiaotao's body. Ma Xiaotao could finally control her own emotions with her willpower, and memories flooded into her brain like a tsunami. I've killed people, Yuhao. I've killed many people, innocent people. And soul masters. I have. Huo Yuhao swiftly interrupted her and said, "Don't say that, sister. I already said, the Holy Ghost Church's Holy Lady did all that, not you. Do you understand? You didn't do all those things." Ma Xiaotao was momentarily stunned. Not me. I didn't do those things. That is correct, you weren't the one. Those people died at the Holy Ghost Church's hands. Those were the words that came out of Huo Yuhao's mouth, but he couldn't help but shut his eyes from all the pain that he felt. He could tell from Ma Xiaotao's status within the Holy Ghost Church that she was different from Tang Yue. Perhaps Tang Yue wasn't strong enough, or her abilities were insufficient, so she hadn't come into contact with much of the Holy Ghost Church's duties and administration. However, with Ma Xiaotao's abilities and her cultivation rank, and with her frighteningly exalted status. I understand. Thank you, brother. Ma Xiaotao stood up straight and stared at Huo Yuhao. Her eyes were actually entirely clear at this moment. Yuhao, you're using ultimate ice to help me suppress the riling emotions in my mind, but how are you able to suppress my evil aura from rising again? I don't know what the Holy Ghost Church has left behind in my body, but that thing has been integrated into my martial soul, the evil phoenix. Because of it, that thing has been affecting my emotions and my mental state. Huo Yuhao lowered his voice and said, I'm using some special methods to absorb the energies of darkness inside your body, but I can feel that these energies are still rising continuously. As soon as I stop absorbing them, I'm afraid they will come back again. In your case, you have to completely fix your martial soul's problems so that you won't be affected anymore. Ma Xiaodao sounded despondent and defeated. Completely fix my martial soul's problems. That's a lot easier said than done. Not even Elder Mu had a solution back then. Huo Yuhao felt a pain in his heart when she mentioned Elder Mu, but he didn't tell her that Elder Mu had passed away. Huo Yuhao knew that it was best that he didn't stimulate her in any way. I have a solution, sister, I really do. I've been to a place, and I've obtained the poison chapter that Tang San, who was part of Shrek Academy's first generation of Shrek's 7 monsters. There is a record in there that describes how to resolve the problems with your evil phoenix. You have to ingest some immortal herbs, and you can dispel that evil aura within you. Furthermore, there are several immortal herbs that you can choose from. When we finish what we have to do here, I will accompany you to look for them. All right. Really? Ma Xiaotao's eyes lit up. Are you just saying that to make me happy? How can I crack jokes about something like this? Huo Yuhao said seriously. Your ancestor, Ma Hongjun, who was the first to possess the evil phoenix, used the very same method to resolve his problems. Can you remember what happened before this? A complicated look and a dash of pain flashed across Ma Xiaotao's eyes. She nodded slightly and said, I can remember parts of what happened. I need some more time to regain my memory. Huo Yuhao continued, Sister, we are in Sunrise City, and this place is very dangerous. I'm staying in this inn next to us, and I'll be here for a while. Come and find me at midnight every day, so that I can help you suppress the evil flames inside you. At least, I can help you control them so that they won't affect your emotions and your mental state. Judging by how fast those energies of darkness are recovering inside your body, they shouldn't affect you within a day. Huo Yuhao stopped here, and his face suddenly changed. Not good, someone else, it seems like they are from the Holy Ghost Church. Sister, you're not fully lucid yet, can you manage? Ma Xiaotao's eyes froze for a moment, then she immediately nodded. I can manage. As long as I remain lucid, I can use my willpower to fight against that evil within me. Leave, quickly. I can deal with this. Take care, sister. Huo Yuhao hugged her tightly before he jumped into the air and swiftly disappeared into the inn that he came from. Ma Xiaodao watched him leave. A forlorn look flickered across her eyes as she muttered, Yuhao, my brother, do you know that some things can't be forgiven and forgotten by lying to myself? Do you know that I've created mountains of corpses and oceans of blood while following them? She couldn't help but press her lips together tightly as she spoke. Ma Xiaodao looked up into the sky and forced back her tears as she clenched her fists tightly. The Holy Ghost Church, the Holy Ghost Church. Shadow after shadow quietly appeared not far behind her, and stepped briskly in her direction. There were 6 people altogether, but when they realized that Ma Xiaodao was the one standing in the middle of the street, not a single one dared to come near. They knelt down on one knee as they muttered in unison, "Greetings, Holy Lady." Eh? Ma Xiaodao suddenly turned around, and in that moment, dark red flames were dancing in her eyes once more. "We've just received reports from the City Defense Army that there were chaotic soul power undulations around this area, so we came here to take a look. I'm not sure if you..." "Scram!" Ma Xiaodao shouted coldly. Yes. All 6 evil soul masters didn't dare to probe any further, and they turned and slunk away. They had witnessed with their own eyes what their holy lady was capable of. Ma Xiaodao watched them disappear, and 2 rows of tears started streaming down her cheeks. Memories shocked her heart and soul like torrential tides, but she still had to take step after step into the distance. The window behind her that closed not too long ago was deeply imprinted at the bottom of her heart. "My younger brother, no matter what. I will always have you, brother." A dash of despondence flickered beneath Ma Xiaotao's eyes, as she rose into the air and flew into the darkness. Huo Yuhao lay on his bed limply, as soon as he returned to his room. He managed to seal the blood vessels in his shoulder, but the pain that he felt was so intense that he had to grit his teeth as tightly as he could so that he wouldn't cry out in agony. Huo Yuhao had started this day by using his spiritual avatar to scout and investigate, and he had ended it with his attempt at awakening Ma Xiaodao. Furthermore, he had had to sustain spiritual interference and imitation continuously while resisting Ma Xiaotao's ultimate fire and suffering the wound on his shoulder at the same time. It had taken all of his willpower to accomplish all that. The high-altitude surveillance soul tools had finally discovered something amiss in the end, because Huo Yuhao had already reached the limit of what he could take, and his spiritual power was almost unable to sustain his soul skills. However, Huo Yuhao had a smile on his face at this moment. He had succeeded. He had successfully awakened Ma Xiaodao. "I've successfully awakened my sister." From the bottom of his heart, helping Ma Xiaodao to clear her head brought him more happiness than if he had saved every single hostage, because she was his family. Furthermore, with Ma Xiaodao as their inside man, they would have a far, far easier time saving those hostages. Spiritual weakness and bodily pain were nothing much for Huo Yuhao's resilient willpower. He calmed himself down for a moment, and waited to recover a little before he immediately activated his Eye of Destiny to amplify his spiritual power. He found Shusansha, and he passed a message to him that he was all right. Afterwards, he sat down with his legs crossed and began to meditate. He wanted to return to the northern side of the city, but his body was in such a state that he really couldn't do that. Furthermore, he had awakened Ma Xiaodao, so he naturally wasn't afraid of his enemies coming back to search for him. Huo Yuhao quickly displayed his formidable regenerative powers. The wound on his shoulder had completely scabbed over after 2 hours, while his spiritual power was recovering at lightning speed. There were 2 other people hard at work late into the same night. Ji Juechen was sitting in a small bar not far from the northern city gate. He was drinking by himself, and his handsome looks had attracted more than one girl. But whenever they came over to flirt with him, he had shaken his head each time. Ji Juechen's face had always been ice cold, but he would laugh foolishly from time to time, and his facial expression would occasionally become a little strange. Jingxian was still feeling a little excited, as she walked discreetly between shadows from wall to wall. She tossed rocks one after another into certain dark corners, and some even rolled near the city wall. Jingxian's movement and actions were very covert and discreet, while she applied just enough strength from her wrists. She completed almost 1 round back and forth along the northern city wall within 2 hours. She looked up at the sky after she finished all that. It was now late into the night, but she didn't feel any fatigue or exhaustion at all. Instead, there was only satisfaction in her eyes. Jingxian patted her hands and stepped out silently from the shadows, and quickly arrived at the bar Ji Juechen was drinking at. A cunning look flashed across her eyes, and the smile on her face immediately transformed into fury, as she barged into the bar looking angry and indignant. Jingxian gazed around inside the bar once she stepped in, and instantly locked her eyes onto where Ji Juechen was sitting. "Very well, you drunkard. You don't come home this late into the night, and you come out to drink alcohol. Follow me home, right now." Jingxian seemed just like a termagant as she dashed in Ji Juechen's direction. She pinched his ear viciously and immediately began to drag him out. "Ayo, can you be gentler?" Ji Juechen felt the pain from his ear as a thread of exasperation and helplessness flowed from his eyes, but there were also dashes of amusement and happiness. Gentler. What? If I find out that you've come out to drink one more time, I'll break your legs. Jingxian was still pinching his ear as she dragged him out of the bar just like that. The bar's customers all looked on with widened eyes and slack jaws, and even the bartender, who was initially dozing off, now had a pitiful look in his eyes. No wonder he didn't dare to accept those girls' flirts, he actually has such a fierce wife. That's just pitiful. So pitiful. Jingxian dragged Ji Juechen several dozen meters outside, before the furious and ferocious look on her face gradually became one of amusement. Ji Juechen didn't struggle out of her pinch, and he forced a laugh as he asked, "Are you enjoying yourself?" Jingxian giggled and said, "A little bit." Ji Juechen said, "Then you should pinch for a little while longer." Jingxian was momentarily stunned. "You?" Ji Juechen heaved a faint sigh and said, "I've devoted my life to the sword before this, and I've overlooked far too much. I've overlooked things that I should be treasuring, especially you." Jingxian was momentarily stunned. She subconsciously released her grip on his ear, and she planted her hands on her hips. "Are you saying that I've been very proactive, and I've always been trying to take advantage of you?" Ji Juechen shook his head as he smiled faintly and said, "I'm foolish and stupid." Jingxian couldn't maintain her pose anymore, and her chin quivered gently as tears covered her eyes. "Why do you have to make me cry?" Ji Juechen pulled her into his embrace and said, "I will use our future days to compensate you, all right?" Jingxian hammered his shoulder heavily and said, "Who needs your compensation?" Ji Juechen didn't answer her question. Instead, he hugged her tightly around the waist. "I don't know anything about words of love, Xian, and I can only tell you that I thought about this long and hard when I was drinking before this. You are more important than my sword." Ji Xian's body trembled when she heard his words. She suddenly looked up and stared at Ji Juechen with incredulous eyes. If another couple had the same conversation, comparing one's partner to an object would undoubtedly lead to conflict and resentment. However, these words were different when they came from Ji Juechen's mouth. Ji Juechen was a sword maniac, and his sword had been the only thing in his life over his entire 20 years alive. His sword was his everything. Jingxian raised her trembling hands and clasped them around his face. Her voice quivered as she said, "You're the foolish one. No words of love can be more melodious than what you've just said to me. I love you, Juechen." She whimpered and sobbed, and tears were all over her lips as she pressed them against his. This time, her kiss wasn't passionate and intense anymore. Instead, her kiss was full of tenderness and warmth. Dawn arrived, and Huo Yuhao had already awoken from his meditation when the first ray of sunlight peeked through the windowsill. There were 2 more people in his room long before he woke up, Shusansha and Yi Gai. They were both sitting in their own chairs with their legs crossed, and opened their eyes when they felt Huo Yuhao awaken. "Seems like you've succeeded. How's your wound?" Shusansha asked Yuhao with a smile on his face. Even though they were startled when they witnessed Huo Yuhao's injury after they came back last night, the fact that he could return to this place and indicated many things. This video will end here.